Welcome ICS3C folks. This is our second note on HTML. So welcome. You got a word processor fired up or a text editor. And it doesn't matter which flavor that you have. I've got a Smart Notebook here, but this will just be text, so you could use any old text editor. That'll be just fine. Remember that you can pause if I'm going too fast. This little lesson is going to be broken into two parts, one where you're taking the notes and one where I'll give some little tips and hints about actually writing code that's based on the stuff that we've covered in the last couple of HTML lessons. So let's get at it. So the first thing that we talked about was lists, and we had both an ordered list, which had the start tag OL, and the end tag, just like you would expect, OL for ordered list. And this was the type of list where the list items, the stuff that we put inside here, had numbers attached. And notice that I've sort of shown the start and the end tags as vertically instead of horizontally, usually because there's a whole bunch of things in here and we like to see where the list starts and ends, and this is kind of a nice way, and I'll show you that in the coding hints and tips that I'll show later. So that's an ordered list, and then of course UL is an unordered list, where the list items have bullets that attached rather than numbers, right? Unordered list makes sense. And then how do I actually get things in there? Well, that's LI, the list items. And notice, usually the list items can show up on one line horizontally like we're used to. So this thing, actually, there's a bunch of them that appear in here. Okay, those are the list items. And they go in either an ordered list, or an unordered list. And notice, you can nest lists in the same way you can nest other tags. And I'm actually going to show that in the coding tips. But as soon as we put a list item inside unordered list or an ordered list, we've got nested tags. And then, we could actually have in these things, in the list items or in the list themselves, paragraphs or links or pictures as well. And you're going to get a chance to play with that when you do some of your own web pages. And of course, you've had some practice doing that on Code Academy. All right, dandy. The next thing that we did, and I don't want to get too far ahead, is the inline CSS. Remember, CSS is cascading style sheets, and that's our second unit, but it gets introduced right here, right now in HTML, and it's pretty slick. It actually gives our web pages a little bit of flavor that's pretty easy. This is styling that occurs in the HTML tags rather than separately. And when we do our unit on CSS, the style will be separate. It can be placed in almost any tag and applies to the scope of that set of tags. And I'll talk more when I get to my sample code about what scope means. But I think you hopefully have got a feel for this already. And placed in, that's what we're going to talk about now, is what that looks like. The inline CSS declarations are in quotes after the keyword style and separated by not by quotes, that should say separated by semicolons. Let me fix that up there. And again, remember, if I'm going too fast, you can pause and catch up. Okay, so here in general, so this is the general syntax. This isn't actually a command. This is kind of like what it looks like in general. In general, we would place the following code in the start tag. So style equals property1, and then colon, and then whatever value that takes, and then a semicolon. There's the semicolon I was talking about, and then property2, semicolon, value, colon, value, and then semicolon, and we can have as many or as few of those as we like, but they are all in quotes, and this is sort of the general picture. Now, if we had some specific examples, so we'd have, so this one is in a paragraph starting starting tag, style equals font family Arial, semicolon, color blue. So there's actually two properties, two CSS properties that we're declaring, two declarations. One is the font family is going to be Arial instead of the default is Times New Roman, and then the color is blue. The default is black. So both of these things are changed, and so the words this text will be in Arial and blue. Would have the paragraph this text show up in Arial font and blue, and we're gonna have fun messing around with that. It's a little bit of fun. Next, there was one more thing I think we took in the last couple of Code Academy videos. Oh, there's a whole bunch of examples. First, the CSS inline properties we've seen so far. There's a whole bunch of them. So we're setting up a little, you could use columns or tabs or spaces. Smart Notebook isn't that fancy. So these are just text boxes that I can drag and drop wherever I want. First one was font family, and then a semicolon, and then most common fonts, and that's browser dependent. So if you got a favorite font, and it might not print out on all the browsers. So, but the usual ones like Times New Roman and Arial and Verdana and Impact and Comic Sans, all those are the words. And you check, just try them, and you might spell them wrong. And if you've spelt them wrong, it'll just go back to the default font. Font size is in pixels. So it'll be the number of pixels and the letters PX. We saw that in the Code Academy. Color is this would be the text color. What's neat is the value, so color, colon, and then whatever goes here. In the example that we had, it was blue. It could be a word like blue, or it's a 6-character hexadecimal number. So there's the pound sign or number sign, and then 4 hexadecimal digits. Not characters, hexadecimal characters, or has RGB, and then these are numbers from 0 to 255, right? 0 to 255, you can get sort of random colors by using RGB, and I'm going to goof around with that later once we get to the sample code. Background color isn't the text color, it's what the color the text is printed on. So far, all of our web pages have been white, but hopefully you're having fun playing around with that. Text align. It's kind of nice to start getting some control about where we can put our text, and these are the values: left, center, and right. And actually, there are more that we'll play around with once we get to CSS, the CSS chapter. There are a lot more CSS properties. We cover these in our unit on CSS, but this is a good start. This allows us some control over the style of our web page, even though we're still working on the structure and the backbone and the skeleton of our web page. It's nice to get some style involved. If you're interested, do a search on the colors and the RGB color. So if this is something that you're interested in, you don't want it just to be blue or yellow or black or whatever, just search HTML colors, and then you'll get a website that you'll be able to check out all the different colors, the 16 million colors or whatever it is. Okay, now I think we're on to the last little point. Other text formatting. We saw strong and makes text bold. And the EM stands for emphasis, and it makes text italicized. Italicized is when it sort of looks like it's leaning over, in case you're not sure what that word means. That's emphasis. This EM makes it look like that. And of course, bold is that thick color. If you haven't done much word processing or media or anything like that, that's what that means. Okay, dandy. That's the note. Hopefully you kept up okay. Remember, you can stop and go back if you like. Part 2 of this lesson is me going through some code that uses some of this and some tips and tricks straight from Restall's brain. So that's coming up in part 2.